The Tom Clancy games are something that I have some familiarity with, mostly because of playing Rainbow Six Vegas and Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter on the Xbox 360. But regardless, these were games that I had a lot of fond memories of and considered to be very great titles. Fast forward a few years and I've moved on like most would with so many games out there to play, but I'll still admit that I always had an interest in stuff like Ghost Recon and even Rainbow Six. So when Ghost Recon Future Soldier was announced, I was like, damn, this looks freaking cool. And when we finally got to see that launch trailer, it was epic with tense action that'll get even the most wholesome person pumped up thanks to the game looking so cool. And with that, let's get into Ghost Recon Future Soldier, shall we? Ghost Recon Future Soldier is an Ubisoft title that would have a 2012 release on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 in North America on May 22nd, with a PAL region having one on May 24th, UK on May 25th, and in Japan on July 5th. Additionally, the game would also be included in the Ghost Recon trilogy a year later on October 1st, 2013. Strangely enough, the PC version of Ghost Recon Future Soldier was originally cancelled by Ubisoft because of piracy. However, this decision would ultimately be reversed and the game would inevitably make it to Windows the same year. The game would release to decent enough scores with a Metacritic of 79 on the 360 and PS3. However, the PC version, which is what I'll be playing, would fare a bit lower with a 71 due to things like bugs at launch. That being said, the game would receive some praise thanks to features like the game's sync shot, campaign length, and even the deep weapon customization. I'll mainly be covering the base game, but I wanted to mention that Ghost Recon Future Soldier had also received a number of DLC packs as well, which would add things like weapons, campaign missions, and multiplayer game modes. There would also be some media related to Ghost Recon Future Soldier with the Believe in Ghosts miniseries, which showed off some of the mechanics of the game, and also a short film titled Ghost Recon Alpha, which was actually a prequel. If you're interested in either of these, they can easily be found for free on the Tom Clancy and Ubisoft YouTube channels, but I'll provide a link to them below. But anyways, with all that out of the way, let's go and take a look at Ghost Recon Future Soldiers for ourselves. If you don't want to deal with a play-by-play recap, then skip to the provided timestamp. In Ghost Recon Future Soldier, you're primarily playing as a dude named Kozak, who's a part of an elite Ghost Recon team called Hunter. In the beginning of the game, however, we find ourselves in Nicaragua as we see this scene with some dudes driving along in a convoy before one of them gets sniped. So we switch to playing as Joe Ramirez, going on to secure a convoy, after which, check in the back of the truck.
Predator, get out of there!
Boom! Get clear! Get clear! Move! Run! Go! 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 Go!
Predator! Damn it, you'll talk to me.
So with this sequence, we see the Team Predator being wiped out as we see this definition of Ghost appear on the screen with the Ghost Recon Future Soldier title appearing. This is when we switch to our boys in the Hunter team who are at Fort Bragg. So this next scene, we need to find information on where the bomb came from, leading us to a man named Gabriel Paez who we're told bit off more than he could chew and now he wants out. So basically, we gotta get the dude out of Bolivia. This leads to the mission Nimble Guardian where we see our team taking some dude on a phone out before we get into contact with Paez, learning that there's people after him, which leads to our objective of securing him. We go in, gathering intel with a little tutorial sort of thing, and then continue onwards, eventually finding Paez as we go to protect him from some enemies. After, however, an RPG interrupts an incoming extraction helicopter, which causes us to have to continue defending Paez when he rushes off from our team, leaving us to fight. This is followed by us needing to reach Paez's hideout to find him, eventually heading through some streets with chaos ensuing. As we draw closer to his safe house, we overhear that he's captured as we continue on to rescue him by breaching in and securing the dude and escorting him to the extraction point. So anyways, this ends the level as we get this next scene with our team chatting away, playing with some stealth camo before they're interrupted when we find out where to find a warlord hiding in a refugee camp who apparently has the same supplier that Paez had. This leads to a briefing where we're told that Paez spilled the beans on a bunch of names, with one standing out, which leads us to a dude named Dede Makaba, in Africa, where we need to find the source of a gear shipment. This leads to the mission Subtle Arrow, where we're in Africa overlooking a dude attacking a villager as we drop him. This is followed by us going on to reach an observation point as we learn our primary objective is to locate Makaba's latest weapon shipment. But anyways, we group up overlooking a giant refugee camp when we're switched to a scene showing there's a humanitarian crisis going on, learning that Makaba controls everything here before we're directed to his location with a contact nearby who's gonna help us get in. We help this dude out and then board the back of his truck as we're driven into the camp with the new objective of locating Makaba as we infiltrate the area. Eventually having to trail him as we overhear him take a phone call, learning that the weapons shipment are inbound at a nearby airstrip before we drop the dude and then go on to our new objective of securing the arms shipment at the airstrip. However, we eventually learn that the shipment had arrived with people now offloading the supplies, with Kozak saying that if they find the plane's flight plan, they can find out where it's been and where it's heading. But anyways, we're driven to an aerodrome and then get tasked with recovering a black box from a plane that we inevitably have to shoot down, going on to its crash site as a storm starts to roll in. Once we get to the location of the crash site, we group up waiting for an extraction as the enemy rolls in. After a little fighting, we're saved by a chopper as we learn that a QRF is going to take over and secure the aircraft's black box, which also ends the level, and goes into this little cutscene with Ghost Lead listening to some music as we go to land, learning that we already have a new job. This goes on to another briefing learning that the recovered black box had hits coming from Nigeria. We learn here that a PMC was operating in the area, providing security for oil companies, muscling in on refineries, and running ops into local villages. We also learn that the CIA's agent, Officer Dan Sykes, delivered an intel package on the situation and went dark. So basically, we're being sent in to go and extract the dude. This begins a mission Noble Tempest as we see our team getting wet. When we hear that the CIA agent is the priority with our objective to locate him, we go on from here, eventually breaching to get a little info on Sykes' whereabouts. After this, we continue onwards through some crazy streets in order to secure the dude. After progressing a little further, we get a cutscene where we're provided information on an oil harbor where Sykes is being held. So anyways, we gotta secure the area so that we can rescue Officer Sykes from a shipping container.
I'll cover. Got it.
Stay down.
Still, be still. It's all right, sir. We're getting you out of here.
We got company.
That's it. We got him. Up, let's go.
Protect the VIP. Diamond formation. Let's move. Move.
So with this section, we blow up some choppers and then escort Sykes to an extraction. Eventually, he tells us about some intel he stashed away at an abandoned gas station, but first, we gotta get him out. After this, we go on to looking for the vehicle with Sykes' files, eventually going on to secure it as we wait for an extraction. However, an enemy chopper comes in, which leads us to need to take it out. Once this is done, we head out, ending the level. This brings us to a little scene with our team not having a good day.
I know that scene in Nigeria was tough, but don't let it get in your head. Those people were in trouble long before we got there.
Hey, there's a line here. Guess the Army's not real big on manners, huh?
Maybe you want to teach me some, kid.
Whoa. Excuse us. We're a little off this morning. We haven't slept in 72 hours. Just got back from a village full of dead kids. Our mistake.
Hey, yeah, you guys go ahead.
But anyways, after this, we're brought to another briefing where we're shown some critical intel with all the supply chains leading us to the same source, a gunner in Pakistan with an international client list. This is where we learn that we're going to Peshawar, where we need to identify, secure, and extract our target. And so it is that we begin the mission Tiger Dust, where our initial objective is to locate the arms dealer. However, we gotta infiltrate the place first, meaning if we get seen, we're done. But anyways, we're eventually led to this point where we gotta use our drone to look into a room that we breach into, getting some information from some dude after we take his phone. This leads to a scene where we get a fix on the dealer, which sends us off to go and get him. Once this cutscene is over, we're brought back in with a new objective, capturing the arms dealer. After going on and securing the area, we eventually make it to their car.
Damn it! Target split! Overlord, Hunter. You got a read on the HVT? Is that a cell? Bomb, get clear, get clear! Hunter, this is Overlord. Do you copy? Hunter, this is Overlord. Do you copy? Come in, Hunter.
So the vehicle was empty and rigged to blow up. Luckily, however, our squad was able to survive. We learn here that the dealer was able to secure a new vehicle and that we'll have to track him down from the air as we rope up to a helicopter. This is followed by another scene where we learn that the dealer is named Katya Progova, who has ties to criminal elements, meaning she's another important person with valuable leads. This next section, we're flying on board a helicopter manning a gun as we get our objective of destroying escort vehicles when we eventually hit this part where Katya's car goes tumbling, which leads to us having to land and clear some enemies in order to secure her. The following cutscene, we see our teams now in Russia where they're playing around with a ground combat drone named Warhound.
Hey, big guy. Queen of England. Hey, verification code Charlie 121 November. Jesus. Damn it, I said Queen, didn't I?
That's your name from now on.
This is followed by a scene where we learn we're in Russia because of Katya, and that her people have been using a derelict weather station as a staging area. So basically, we gotta get intel on the area and then bring it down. This begins the mission Silent Talon, where we see our team going through a blizzard with the objective of disrupting enemy comms as we follow along Warhound. We're eventually tasked with securing an area, and then going on to destroy comms and some other stuff with the combat drone. After this, we make it to a boat where we learn that our first priority is to get a system dump off of the mainframe, and then after, bury the place. This leads to the next section where we immediately begin with the lockdown timer as we go on to locate a weapons cache. After successfully making it to the end of the area, we see Kozak go on and secure a terminal, learning that the weapons might be in a cavern and that we'll need to head up topside via a nearby elevator to get to them. Once we're there, we get the new objective of destroying the weapons cache, going on to secure another area, and then going on to this place where we see a bunch of missiles, one of which we plant a charge on before making our escape. After we hit the extraction point, we get to see a big boom, which then ends the level. The next scene shows kind of a cringe intermission moment where a random dude is talking about a pilot of a helicopter being sniped, with our team saying that it didn't happen like that.
And the best part? The bird just rolls over and drops. Blam! Right on the enemy position. I mean, clears out
If I remember
everything
right,
just like
that one shot,
Insane.
that was with an RPG.
Yeah.
You gonna tell them how it really went down?
Right, so it's lines of the shopper.
Nah,
Right? Oh, and he just
their version's better.
But anyways, this leads to a briefing where we find out Progova is part of a faction called Raven's Rock. We learn that they're moving a top-grade system, which means we gotta go in and destroy it. Officially beginning the mission, Firefly Rain. Our first objective is to infiltrate an airport without alerting any enemies. We pretty much go on through the area, eventually getting inside where we gotta use a drone to stop some fans so we could progress to a runway with a heavy enemy presence as we group up and continue our infiltration. Eventually, we hit yet another set of fans, knocking out the power and gaining access to an area where our new objective is to sabotage a missile guidance system. After this, we learn of an unmanned vehicle near the team's position and go on to reach it in order to get to an extraction. This next section is followed by us shooting away, watching all sorts of chaos ensue before we crash, discovering our target was destroyed in the process with our new objective of getting to an extraction point. Before we could extract, however, we gotta take out a bunch of enemies, including this tank. Towards the end, however, we drop an airstrike, which ends the level. The next scene, we see some dudes filming when we see some chaos happening when we learn that was actually a nuke with its warhead taken out, but nothing could be done about the delivery system. This leads to us being informed that we're going to be going after the launch site. This is followed by a briefing where we're told that the missile came out of Russia, with the site being in Dagestan. This begins the mission Ember Hunt, where we're told about multiple search teams operating in the area. This leads to us going on to find a Georgian unit as we get a fix on the location of a dude named Osadi, who we have to go and rescue. However, he ends up not being at the spot, which leads to us having to go and find and secure him, eventually discovering that he's at a church. We continue on with our systems being hacked and going all wonky when we make it to the church, where we breach into a room where Osadi is and save him.
Go, go, go! Protect the suspect!
There's another one.
Hostile down! Are you injured? Can you move? Sergeant Osatse.
Ah, my friend. Just in time.
So after we save the dude, a Spec Ops group ambushes the Ghost team, leading them to need to fight their way to an extraction point where we hold our position when our way out gets shot, which causes us to need to wait for instructions, inevitably leading to the Ghost team jumping off of a bridge to escape, thus ending the level. As we see this scene where we learn they were able to successfully make it out alive, when we learn that there's soldiers on standby to evac an embassy in Moscow with a coup happening. We also learn with the following briefing sequence that we're being sent in again due to Raven's Rock coming out of the shadows as they've now taken the Kremlin. We also learn about two new players here, a General Bukharov and their new president, Sergei Makhmadov, and in order for us to help the resistance forces, we gotta go into the North Sea and secure some drilling ships. This begins the mission Deep Fire, where we see our team breaking through some ice and going in to infiltrate a drilling ship. Once inside, they take some dudes out and continue onwards with the objective of disabling systems. While en route, we find out that the hostiles started a lockdown sequence, which means the ghosts need to haul it to the control room to shut it down. After this, we hack into the system and then go onto a helipad on the upper deck. So once we finally get into the air, we man a machine gun with hostiles converging on the second ship as we go to secure it by blowing up targets while the enemy tries to plant charges at the base of the ship. After we decimate everything in existence, the level ends as we extract. The next scene, we see Kozak interrogating some dude in Russian. The guy ends up taunting the dead ghost, and then Kozak hits back saying that he killed a bunch of their guys too. After Kozak leaves the room, he informs the group that the dude's tattoos were from Russian folklore involving men who chose to become wolves, and to tell the DIA to start hunting references to Bodark. This is followed by a briefing where we learn that the DIA has identified a leader who could bring the Russian resistance together, a dude named Alexei Duka, who is pinned in by Raven's Rock, which means we gotta go and help the dude. The next level, Valiant Hammer, we begin by reaching an observation point. We go on securing areas when we're told by Overlord that they've picked up a signal from General Duka, who's scrambling. Anyways, after we hit the observation point, we find the ghost team overlooking a field HQ, leading them to go in to find intel. But first, we gotta secure the place. After this, we regroup and go on into a building, discovering that reinforcements are bound from the west who are gonna try to trap General Duka's men in between, as Kozak gets in contact with him to warn him about the attack, as we now have a new objective of destroying artillery units. So after this, we head to an extraction point. However, we learn from Duka that two of his units had been lost to hostile teams in our area as we continue on, getting attacked by the enemy. We go in and secure the area, eventually heading to a bridge where we see troop transports heading behind General Duka's position, which means that all of our work would be lost if they make it there. This leads to us needing to go on the offense, eventually hitting this point where we gotta deal with a tank as our team tries to avoid getting dropped with a Hawk ETA in 1 minute. So as the onslaught continues, we eventually end it by dropping in an airstrike to blow up the tank, which ends the level. In the next scene, we see Kozak in a suit before deploying out to a free fall. This leads to the next briefing where we learn Resistance is making a push thanks to General Duka. However, we also discover that Raven's Rock has an ace in the hole with a locked up President Volodin, meaning Kozak gotta get him out of prison, with Duka having a nearby force ready to transport the president back to Moscow. This begins the mission, Gallant Thief, with Kozak infiltrating a prison camp. Once inside, Kozak needs to enter the security area by grabbing some dude and then using him to open a door that can only be opened through eye scanning. So after this, he goes on to tap into the security system where we learn from Overlord that fire support is on standby to cover his escape, and that while they work on the security data, Kozak will need to get some targeting beacons in place, which leads to the next objective of planning them. After this, Kozak heads into the base to rescue the president. After successfully finding the dude, he frees him with the objective now being to escort him to safety. Along the way, we see the base is getting blasted as we continue to an extraction point where we need to hold position until a helicopter arrives. And when it does, the level officially ends as well. The following scene, we see our team overlooking some chaos in Moscow when Ghost Lead calls his kid to wish him happy birthday. When we switch to this briefing where we learn we gotta support Duka's forces in Moscow. This leads to the mission Invisible Bear, where we're playing Guardian Angel protecting a crowd, going on and infiltrating to this big old staircase that we gotta climb up.
I feel like someone should be rolling barrels at us.
Hey, why the hell didn't we just ask him to drop us up on the roof?
Hey, if you wanted to sit around all day, you should have joined the Air Force.
Yeah, well, if I'd wanted to climb stairs all day, I would have joined the gym. Oh boy, man, I can't wait to come down all these steps again.
Once we're at the top, we take some dudes out and then learn from Overlord that Volodin has joined the procession, so we gotta make sure nothing happens to him by taking out enemies across the way. Once this is done, we receive a new objective of heading to General Bukharov's HQ, seeing this small cutscene of the situation in the area.
This is, well, it's amazing. This is a real moment in history we're witnessing here. I've just learned that deposed President Volodin has joined the procession. President Volodin himself has joined the march through the city. Incredible. We can see that his supporters have rallied around him and are staying close to him as a sort of shield, if you will, showing their total support of him. They seem willing to protect him at all costs, though so far there doesn't seem to be any need for the protection.
After which, we go into another area where we gotta fight some Spec Ops dudes, and then continue with another cutscene with a speech going on. And then we go and fight up a street to Bukharov's HQ. Eventually, we make it to a restaurant where we gotta hold and fight off the enemy before proceeding to the HQ when we see yet another cutscene of the status update on the current situation.
The crowd has been making progress towards the presidential palace. Incredibly, they've been met with no resistance or force. We have heard sporadic gunfire and what may have been explosions or distant artillery fire, we're not sure, but so far the march has proceeded right through the heart of Moscow without a single incident of violence. At this point, my best guess is that military support for the coup has all but dissolved. The gunfire we've heard may well have been from fighting amongst coup supporters. We have had some reports of a few soldiers having been killed, but well ahead of this procession. Those are still unconfirmed, but it may show that those responsible for the coup are turning on one another even now. We're not far from the palace. I can actually just see the top of it from here. Now, in just a few more minutes, we should have a very good idea of how this situation is going to be resolved, if at all.
Anyways, we switch back to the Ghost team again and go on with the objective of eliminating Bukharov, coming across a room where we end up breaching in and taking the dude out. So after this, we learn that the people of Russia have captured Sergei Makhmadov, along with the confirmation that we did, in fact, drop Bukharov. This is followed by a scene where we see our team having some drinks together when they're interrupted, finding out that they now have the intel on the people who took out Predator team. This is followed by a briefing where we learn that the crisis is over, but we still gotta take out the rest of Raven's Rock, with us being sent in to infiltrate with the mission Shattered Mountain. This level begins with our team driving in a car when they pull up to the side of the road, gearing up and going on to enter the enemy compound where we gotta explore and eliminate targets. We eventually hit this point where we're timed and gotta take some of them out before they escape, and then go on chasing after the remaining men, with the last dude almost getting away when we're told not to finish him off. However,
Good dog.
Sounds like your ride's coming.
You have your orders. You have to take me
Our
in.
orders were not to touch you.
No! Come back! You can't leave me here! No!
so the ghosts let the guy get killed by a train, and then the game ends. And that, my friends, is Ghost Recon Future Soldier. Summarizing my thoughts on the game and the story, I don't know, man. I don't know if I'm the biggest fan of this one. Like, the game is fine, it's not bad. There just wasn't enough to the story to make me feel all that engaged with anything happening outside of the introduction, where you see our initial group getting killed by a dirty bomb. I think the story does build up and become more interesting around the halfway point. It's just getting there is the hard part. What I did like about the game was actually the gameplay itself. It's been a while since I've played a tactical shooter, so I was actually surprised at how mechanically sound the game felt. Like, it didn't feel old. There wasn't any moments where I was ever really bored dropping enemies or anything, and I liked playing around with the gun customization at first. It was just the story was hard for me to stay interested in. I think it's also worth mentioning that this isn't a short game either. I'm pretty sure my playthrough took around 12 hours, which is kind of long compared to some of the other stuff that I've played on this channel. But anyways, what other things are there to talk about with Ghost Recon Future Soldier? Well, the game is a tactical cover-based shooter, so you spend a lot of time going cover to cover and playing peekaboo with enemies, as you pop off with your squad mates through a bunch of pretty interesting levels with a lot of fun sections. That being said, there's honestly a bunch of random stuff that I could praise in the game too. I like the sync shot and the amount of gun customization. Starting with the sync shot stuff, it's a cool concept to be able to command my squad to take out targets together. It makes going through missions feel a lot more tactical and gives you an extra way of making sure stuff gets done properly, either by having your squad mates do the work for you or by involving yourself, taking out enemies enemies with them. But then we move on to the other positive that I found within the game, and that's the level of gun customization. Seriously, you have so much to play around with that it can feel a little overwhelming at times. It's insane at how deep this system actually is. However, my only complaint is that it can feel a little sloppy, and it's kind of too much in some ways. Like, really, you don't need this much customization at all. It's nice, sure, but just give me some scopes, stocks, and camos, and I'm a happy camper. I don't need to slow the rate of how fast my gun is gonna shoot in a video game when I'm mostly single shot and everything in the campaign anyways. I think a lot of the times I glossed over this because I didn't want to sit there and tinker around with my weapons for 10 minutes. I just wanted to get back into the action as quick as possible without messing around. I think the game looks fine graphically as well. It's hard to really complain about things like weird looking faces for a game from the early 2010s. However, I'd say that things like the environments and things like the weather are visually appealing. In the mission Subtle Arrow, for example, you eventually hit a point where there's a massive storm. It looks insane and really helps make you feel immersed as you make your way through the remaining parts of the mission. Speaking of the missions, you also get a nice diversity here with all sorts of things that you could utilize to help you reach your goals. For example, in Silent Talon, you got this combat drone called Warhound that you could use to blow up the enemies. Variety is always a good thing to help keep someone from getting bored when all you're doing is going from cover to cover, shooting enemies left and right, so stuff like this helps. In the way the game drip feeds you with new weapons and gear to play around with on each level, it makes you want to continue on just to see what kind of new stuff you get. Other than that, sounds like voice acting and music were also solid enough. I thought the game's soundtrack was pretty good, though I have to say, the random usage of licensed music threw me off. But beyond that, I'd say that the performances in the game are alright too. Dudes like Troy Baker are always good, and we also got some voice acting from Brian Bloom and Steve Blum as well. But yeah, it's a military game, so you have to expect that some stuff tries to make you feel like a bad MF. No real complaints and nothing that really stands out too much either, apart from maybe some head-shaking moments here and there with the dialogue, but it's all fine otherwise. So finally, we come to the complaints section. I already mentioned that the game's gun customization can feel a bit overwhelming at times, but it's still a good system regardless. However, there's stuff that I feel a bit underwhelmed by. It's an anomaly of a game. There's some stuff that I enjoy, yet at the same time, I'm like, why do I care? These little cutscenes of interactions between our squad, I mostly found myself not caring. Nothing of value comes from a lot of these, except for some cringe moments that I feel like maybe I would have forgiven had I played this game when it first came out. But now as a sad, pathetic adult, I'm like, damn, this writing is something else. Kind of a shame too, because the game starts off pretty strong too. But once you meet the squad that we're actually playing as through most of the game, it feels weird because the voice acting is really good, but some of the dialogue is kind of oof. Like, I'm pretty sure they were trying to portray these dudes as cool with moments like them jamming to Pantera and just broing out, but they still managed to come off like a bunch of dweebs with a lot of moments where I just had to roll my eyes in response. Luckily, however, the gameplay is still fun enough to make up for the story because it is actually an enjoyable game otherwise. Well, except for the stealth missions. These are just the worst. There's nothing more annoying than being spotted and getting thrown back to a checkpoint. It's just caught, done. I hate this because it makes some missions far more annoying. That being said, get used to crawling in the dirt and rolling past enemies. Things like the stealth camo are great, but if you're crouched, it's still possible to be seen. Why? I don't know. Maybe it's a balancing thing, but either way, super irritating. So anyways, that's Ghost Recon Future Soldier. I don't know, man. I don't know if I like the game all that much. I personally think the Advanced Warfighter games were much better, but that's just me. I think there was groundwork here for something that could have been a cool series, but game was fouled up with Wildlands. That being said, Future Soldier was still fine to go through at least once, and I think you can really praise the level of environmental detail and things like the gun customization, but I don't know if someone's gonna miss out by not playing this game. Though on the flip side, at least it's cheap to pick up if you get curious or you're bored. Like, the gameplay is fine, but most of the story isn't anything to write home about. In fact, I'm probably gonna forget everything that happened in this game by next week. It's weird because there's some stuff that I like about Future Soldier, but then there's stuff that I'm like very mixed on. I think the gameplay has aged phenomenally well and everything, but the story just doesn't seem all that memorable to me. I could have just been tossed into each level with only the briefing and been just as fine as I was seeing these cutscenes involving our squad. Just didn't really resonate with me all that much, but either way, Ghost Recon Future Soldier is still an okay game, and that's just fine. Thank you all for watching. Another different one here. So what do you think about Ghost Recon Future Soldier? Have you played it in the past or remember seeing it at all? Feel free to comment and let me know. Also, if you already haven't, please consider liking and subscribing. It always helps me out. But anyways, we'll be back with more soon enough, so stay tuned. Until next time, peace out.